All right, I am here on this episode of the Foxed In podcast, your host, Jeremy Fox, here with Debbie Hampton, who I have been really excited to interview for a while now because she's a prolific author. She's written at least 2 books that have great reviews on Amazon. One of them is Beat Depression and Anxiety by Changing Your Brain with Simple Practices That Will Improve Your Life, and the very attention-grabbing title, Sex, Suicide, and Serotonin, which, let me tell you, is an awesome name for an autobiography. So Debbie is an advocate and a neuroscience aficionado. She is self-taught on a lot of the stuff, which is even more impressive considering how much she knows about research. Thank you, Debbie, for coming on.
Thank you for the invitation, Jeremy.
Of course. And we are both Southerners. I'm displaced, though. I'm out here in the West, here in Denver. And you are back.
Where are you originally from?
South Carolina, born and raised near Spartanburg.
North Carolina.
Yeah. North Carolina is great. You're in Greensboro, right? Is that? Yeah. Right. Oh, man. Let me tell you, I miss Bojangles and Zaxby's. I go back to visit about once a year, and I have to get me a big Bojangles biscuit with that butter. It's so unhealthy, but so good.
That's so Southern.
I know. So, so Debbie, as comfortable as you are, you can talk about whatever you want. You don't have to talk about whatever you don't want. I'm going to direct listeners. I'm going to put attachments in the links in the podcast description where they can check out these books on their own, because I know you at length have shared your story. But if you want, just for my audience, to go over what got you into mental health, what you went through that really sparked your journey here.
Well, Jeremy, as you said, I'm a self-taught mental health expert. I call myself an experiential expert.
It's a catchy title.
And sometimes just living the experiences is the best way to learn.
Yeah, that's true.
I went from being depressed, anxious, catastrophic thinking, very dramatic, reactive personality.
Right.
To I'm not perfect now, but I'm calm, I'm happy, and I can work with my mind.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I don't think any of us are taught how the mental health skills when we're growing up. I know I wasn't as a child in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
We model what we see. And my parents were healthy and good parents for what was the norm at that time.
Of course.
But it wasn't incredibly emotionally intelligent. So I learned how to be reactive, how to have negative thinking patterns, how to be catastrophic, anxious, depressed.
Right.
And I followed that example through my adult life. I married my high school sweetheart, and we right out of college, and we proceeded to move around the U.S. with his job. And as he gained in power, and he said in his career, I sunk and decreased. And as his world expanded, mine got smaller, and I got more dependent and more anxious and more depressed. And I should say, he didn't start out this way, but he ended up being a very controlling narcissist. And as you may know, on the other end of narcissist comes all kinds of traumatic mental health issues.
Yes.
So that was part of why, as he grew, I shrank. So I got more depressed, more anxious, and I had one son, and in between that son and my other one, my older brother, who was 10 months older than me, got AIDS and died, and I took care of him.
Yeah.
And as you also may know, and as many of your listeners may know, being a caregiver, oh my gosh, it takes such a toll on your mental health.
Absolutely.
and to have a baby on one side and him on the other. And then he died. So I'm
Yes.
dealing with all that grief, dealing with being a mother of two now,
Yeah.
and still a narcissistic, controlling husband.
Right.
And all this is, I don't want to come off making excuses, but your brain and your mental health are a reflection of your life.
Absolutely. Yes.
Science is more than proving. Neuroplasticity, your brain actually changes form and function depending on what happens in your life.
Right.
And epigenetics, which is your genes actually switch on or off depending on life events. So I don't think I was born depressed.
Right.
And with mental health problems.
Right.
But I certainly had that proclivity in my genes because we've got alcoholism, depression, all kinds of things in my family. So I certainly had that propensity in my genes, and life events just happened one after another. And I think it turned those genes on. And I didn't have the tools to deal with it. The tools that I learned were commit suicide, overreact, freak out. So unfortunately, that's what I tried to do.
Right.
In 2007, after I divorced the ex and was a single mother living back in North Carolina with my two sons, after a tumultuous relationship, post-divorce relationship with another man, which was almost as unhealthy as the first one, I just said I'd had enough. And I tried to kill myself by taking a bunch of pills. And I ended up putting myself in a coma for a week. And when I woke up, I was severely brain injured. I mean, I didn't know my second son had been born. I didn't know I'd gotten divorced. I couldn't speak, which you still may hear some speech issues, but oh my God, at first all I could do is make sounds.
Yeah.
So I'll take this any day. But after the brain injury, it was many, many, many years of rehabilitating physically, mentally, and emotionally. And during that time period, I learned, and the more I learned about how to rehabilitate and change my brain and my emotional state and my mental health, the better I got. And the better I got, the more I learned. And what the bottom line is, what I realized is that this is not anything you need a bunch of money for or that you have to go to school for. I mean, you can, certainly. But learning about mental health and neuroplasticity and your brain is something any of us can do.
Right.
And put it to use in our own lives to help us and help our mental health. And all it takes is time and effort and knowledge. And that's my message.
That is absolutely awesome. I think you hit on something so important there. People don't need to feel intimidated by experts with degrees because, you know, when people go to their therapist, hopefully, I underscore, you're going to learn those tips, those tools, those new schematic tools that help you conceive of problems in a new way and with a better approach than you had before. So people like you who are out there disseminating this message, giving these tools to people who may not walk into a therapist's office, may not want to take that step, and that's okay, can first get a handle on these research findings about neuroplasticity and about how it's relevant to them. And, you know, at the very most, that may be what they need to get that spark to get out of depression, to get back into life. And at the very least, I think it will be something that gives them the hope to go to a therapist, to go to someone and talk about this stuff. So either way, it's spectacular as a way to begin a conversation that really needs to happen, because your story has more than a few, but a few elements here that really stand out to me. You were being squeezed on both sides, right, by young children on one end, which of course we're not blaming, but you were serving as a mother on one end, and then as a caretaker for someone on the other side of life who was in the grips of passing away. And so that sort of stretching of your emotional resources played such a part in being just exhausted, I'm guessing.
And Jeremy, what so many women and people don't learn, I know I didn't, and I think the generation now is better and they're learning this, but we didn't. You have to learn how to take care of yourself first.
Absolutely.
And I didn't do that. I mean, I took care of everybody else,
right? Not
me. And if you don't take care of yourself on a daily basis, and it doesn't have to be a lot of work. It can be fun, and after a while, it just becomes habit. Mm-hmm. But if you don't, you're gonna crash. You're gonna have a breakdown. You're gonna break out of stress, anxiety. Mental health is gonna show.
Yes.
And the best thing that any of us will ever do is take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because it makes for a happier, healthier life now and in the long run.
Yes. We could get into so many of those factors there that are toxic in that sort of milieu that you were growing up in. You know, the expectations on women, the sort of spiritual underpinnings of needing to always care for others at your own expense. The turn the other cheek mentality, people have really perversely abused in draining empaths, because the flip side of that on a spiritual level is we have to care for others as we care for ourselves. But guess what? If we're caring poorly for ourselves, we're caring poorly for others.
The flip side of that is learning boundaries.
Which I love that book so much by Cloud and Townsend, right? The book Boundaries. I recommend anyone who has any tendencies toward codependence or being exhausted emotionally to check that out. We talk about it in session. It's just such an important thing. It's a paradigm shift.
Oh yeah.
People can't use empathy as a manipulative trigger anymore, because that's a pet peeve of mine, is seeing people who are giving being tapped out and sucked dry, right? There's always people who give and those who refuse, and we have to make sure that the empaths are not depleted like batteries.
Well, I was the child of a narcissist, so okay. I did not learn boundaries, and you learn on the other side of the narcissistic relationship that you can't say no, that right. You don't. But I learned in my 40s, better late than never, but I also learned that there's always a nice way to say no. And there's usually something in between yes and no.
Yes.
And people aren't going to explode and respond the way that you are accustomed to. Sometimes it's actually what they want to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I work with clients with setting up EMDR targets, one of the big things is tracing back and unraveling that the early childhood messages you get about what it means to say no. It can either mean you're going to be abused, you're going to lose out on parental affection, you're going to have just that coldness or neglect. And in our adult relationships, people can fear that they're going to lose a friend if they say no. And unfortunately, there are people who are only around because of what they can get. If you lose people like that, It hurts to lose
You
any
need to
relationship.
lose those.
Right. Right. You have to grieve that.
Narcissists people on the other end of narcissism that can't say no attract users.
Right. It's fascinating how that works. Yeah. They
But they learn.
Yeah. Yes. 100%. Boy, we could just talk about this for a long time. I want to ask though, so your story is so inspirational. How did you get into, I'm also so impressed by the absolute professionalism of your articles. I've got one pulled up here on Huffington Post, The 10 Fundamentals of Rewiring Your Brain. It reads like an academic essay, but one that's got a lot more attractive language and that is more understandable. I mean, you cite these books, you give links within the text to these other books, which I'm going to recommend to clients now. What got you into sharing your message on these platforms like Huffington Post? How did you get into being such a prolific advocate?
Well, Jeremy, I always say that I have to explain neuroscience in ways that I can understand it. So that's actually become what I'm known for, is like explaining it in ways simple to understand, conversational, making complex topics simple. And it was just such an eye-opener to me, and so empowering to understand how my brain works. And when you do, you realize, oh, that's why I do this, or why I react this way. And then you also understand how you change it. And so I wanted to share that with others. But I don't really have a great respect for, and I don't mean to disrespect them, but for the airy-fairy, just believe it's true, send out good vibes, and good vibes will come to you. I mean, that is true to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I want to see the science. And I want to know why. Why does that work? And to be honest with you, Huffington Post actually contacted me from an article, I think, on MindBodyGreen, and invited me to write for them. And I don't know, I just started writing things that I wanted to share with people, and they started getting distributed. And I think other people found it as empowering and revelatory as I did. Because when I first read this kind of stuff, I was like, wow. I mean, it totally changed my reality. I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I was in my 40s until I learned that I'm not my thoughts, and that my thoughts were something different. And I don't have to identify with them or believe them. Your thoughts are generated by your subconscious brain.
Right.
And primarily from your wounds.
Right.
And your fears and your bad experiences that your amygdala is remembering. Because your brain's priority is always keeping you safe and keeping you alive. It is never keeping you happy.
Bingo. Yep.
That has to be a conscious choice. So everything your brain generates is going to be anxiety producing. Your brain actually has a negativity bias.
Yes.
And that's one thing that helped our species survive.
Yes.
Because you stood a better chance of surviving if you remembered where you were chased by a predator rather than remembering a nice sunny napping spot.
You're right, yeah.
So I always say you have to make the conscious effort to find the good in your past and your present and your future. Your brain is not automatically going to produce that. And those are the kind of mental health tools that I've learned. I mean, it's not like you graduate or like I've graduated and I never get anxious or have a depressive or negative thought. I do. But the thing I know now is I know how to work with them and how to work with my mind and how to guide my mind rather than it controlling me and causing me to freak out and try to kill myself.
Right.
You don't have to do that.
Right.
And it's no fun to live that way.
That's absolutely spectacular that you recognize the foundations of evolutionary psychology and the bias towards safety. I mean, when you understand that, and when you understand that you are not your thoughts, and that our negative interpretations don't necessarily mean truth, then you're free to really think differently. It seems like a lot of people now could stand to be experts on their own lives. I know you said that that's really your specialty. Well, that is a huge specialty to have, because it seems like people go through life on a very automatic basis now. Things are very much kind of click, swipe, do all of these activities on a very limbic system level, rather than with any kind of cortical, prefrontal cortex forethought. So just being responsible for your own life is huge in itself.
And hear me think about it. That's what the anxiety and depressive epidemics are a result of.
Right.
They're a result of everybody being so limbically stimulated and focused. And that's what their whole life is now.
Yes.
Is responding or reacting. Reacting.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Without thought, without pulse. Mm-hmm. And that's why mindfulness works so well. Is what mindfulness actually does is it asks you to shift the part of your brain that's in control from the limbic system, from the reactive amygdala that always wants to keep you safe, to your frontal lobe and your thinking brain, your humanness. And it asks you to think, okay, I feel anxious about this. Okay, I feel anxious, but am I really in danger? Or is it a new situation that ultimately would provide growth or provide a step forward in my career? I mean, just because you feel anxious, which is your brain, doesn't mean it's bad.
No, it doesn't. It can mean that it's the imprint of something familiar.
Right.
It's an opportunity, but it reminds you of a time when maybe in the past you got stage fright or something, and a loved one, a narcissistic loved one, said, "Oh, you could have done better in that presentation," or something like that. And then in the future, you draw on that and think, "I'm going to protect myself. I'm not going to open myself to that potential shame again." You're absolutely right.
I don't pretend to think that anxiety and depression are biological.
Right.
Because they do become biology.
Bingo.
But biology is created by your mental states, and your mental states create your biology. It's a feedback loop.
100%.
So all the depression and all the anxiety that everybody is experiencing nowadays, on some level, is learned.
Yes.
I mean, and that is not to say it's not biological. So many people get angry and defensive. It is biological, but it's a learned biological process, and it can be unlearned. And what you have to do is you have to learn to interrupt the space between that brain reaction and responding. And in that pause, in that mindful moment, is your choice and your ability to change your brain and your life. I mean, you physically can change your brain through neuroplasticity by repetition and time. And things like EMDR, neurofeedback, can really help speed up the process, but you don't have to do those things.
Yes. So I like that you brought up that idea of the mindful pause, because seriously, expanding that time between stimulus and response, even by a few milliseconds and then a few seconds, will make such a difference in whether we say something that we're later going to regret, whether we alienate someone who we think reminds us of a narcissistic, exploitative ex, or we recognize that that's just our sympathetic nervous system overreacting in the moment. I mean, and that allows us so much freedom in how we then respond. We're not taught that, though. We're taught follow your heart, which program your heart into the responding better towards your safety. Don't follow an anxious heart into quarantining yourself based on past terrible experiences, which of course aren't your fault. But we carry, I tell clients, it's painful. It's a painful truth, but we're never responsible for what was done to hurt us. We're still responsible for recovering, though, which sucks. But we can either take that and do something with it and learn that we can do better once we recover, or we can take it and use it as an excuse or wallow or allow it to stagnate into a personality disorder. So many different negative routes for it. But that's why it's so impressive when people like you really use your intelligence to not just help yourself, but to teach this stuff to other people, to have that passion for making neuroscience into something applicable, because it really is. What could be more applicable? I'm just astounded by how you don't sacrifice any of the technical findings when you make this stuff conversational. That's pretty awesome.
Well, I try to, like I said, I have to make it so I can understand it.
Sure.
And I have to break it down into parts. And really, I mean, rather than try to confuse and dazzle people with big words, why not put it in ways that they can understand and use?
How about that? Right. So to go back to your point about how relevant mindfulness is, which is a term that we use a lot, but I think is still pretty misunderstood. In your article about the fundamentals of rewiring your brain, you say that the more alert you are, the bigger the brain change. So I think people need to realize experiences, you'll encode them differently. You'll encode your response differently when you're alert and when you notice how you're behaving. When you choose to behave in a certain way and you notice the outcome, that's going to be more reinforcing of whatever positive change you're making than just going through automatically, which can be so easy to do in our lives.
Well, Jeremy, another word that people can use for mindfulness, if they don't like the spirituality kind of connected to that, is attention.
Bingo.
Really, really, I mean, it's just attention and focus and where you're directing your brain. That's all mindfulness is.
It is, 100%.
I mean, and you can get spiritual and philosophical with it, or you can get sciencey. I mean, whatever you want to call it. I'm actually working on a third book now on using mindfulness as a mental health tool.
Boom, there you go.
Because I do want to kind of separate like all the mindfulness is not the same thing as meditation or spirituality. A lot of times you see them used interchangeably. It's not the same thing. And I want to break it down for people so that they don't feel intimidated. And so that they have steps that they can look at and go, oh, okay, this is how I do it.
Right.
But it's really not complicated, and it doesn't have to be.
You're absolutely right. I am really glad that you spoke out against the faux spirituality, very Western hemisphere, good vibes.
All it is on one level is marketing.
What?
All it is on one level is marketing.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And what you see and what I hear from clients is that stuff works if you've had a bad day and someone cut you off in traffic. But when you have systemic negative relationships with abusive individuals, just smile and meditate for a few minutes. That's not going to cut it. You need real sustainable tips and actual tools.
And that's why I want to provide the science behind it.
Yes.
Because I don't want to add to all the marketing noise.
Yeah.
And I'm not promoting naked yoga or a silent meditation retreat. Those things are fine, but you don't have to go to those extremes to get benefit. And you don't have to be a Buddhist master to get benefit. God knows I'm not.
Okay. That's good to know. Oh my God. Naked yoga. Haven't tried that.
Me either. I don't want to. I'm a yoga-holic. I do yoga about 3 to 4 times a week, but I have no desire to do that.
So let me ask you about what you think on hot yoga. You've done that, right? That's on your bio, I think.
That is the kind of yoga I do. As a matter of fact, I used to own the studio, and
whoa,
yoga is good no matter what kind of yoga you do. Hot yoga is just what I prefer and what a lot of people prefer. I'd rather be hot any day than cold.
Tell me.
And hot yoga warms the muscles up, so there's less chance of injury. And it's also more of a workout. I do vinyasa or flow yoga, which is a lot of push-ups. And it's not the stretching, easy, relaxing yoga, but that stuff works too. And there's actually a lot of neuroscience why yoga works mentally, not just physically. It causes your brain to release GABA, endorphins. I mean, when I was healing from the brain injury, I did yoga about every day. And of course, it helped me regain my coordination because when I first started, I couldn't even balance on one leg. So, and after a brain injury, a lot of your muscles tend to get tense and locked, and it helped release those. But I could also tell after every class that it was doing something mentally. And remember, I was severely brain impaired.
Right.
I had absolutely no memory. My thoughts and speech weren't together.
Okay. Right.
And my cognitive processes just weren't there. But after every yoga class, I could tell. It was doing something.
Right.
And I would advise it for anyone. And it's not about being bendy in what you can do physically. It's about whatever you can do.
Right. Bingo. Yeah, I agree with you. Yoga, it's fascinating how the things that were once so ancient, like, oh, that's kind of fruity, now have come back and we understand why they worked. We understand the somatic, physiological regulation that stuff induced. So that leads me to a little bit of a rabbit trail here. So your book, which one was it? It was, let's see, I think it was your autobiography. Yeah, 23 ratings, 5 stars. The only book I've seen that I remember that got that perfect a rating was, speaking of yoga, The Body Keeps the Score the book by Bessel van der Kolk. Yeah.
I
So
read it.
he talks about yoga a lot. It's very cool because he's this decorated psychiatrist who explored the alternative therapies and is very gung-ho, very excited about EMDR and other stuff that's non-medication that induces those deep changes besides just in the neurotransmitters on a short-term basis, but in that potentiation of the synapses.
Well, and talking to his book, and what you know in your practice is that your body stores memories.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
stores chemicals, cortisol. And yoga and physical practices, exercise, whatever you want to do, release those. You called it somatic. I mean, you have to move your body to heal your brain and your mind. It's all one. It's all connected. And you can't separate it. You can. Now, I'm not anti-medication. There are times when medication helps, but you can't just pop a pill and expect everything to be okay. It's all connected. I mean, you can pop a pill and do other things.
Right.
But it's synergistic. I mean, mental health and physical health is a lifestyle. It's not one thing. It's not just going to yoga. It's not just eating a keto diet.
Right.
Or running 5 miles a day. It's a combination of everything.
Yep, 100%. And that sort of integrative science is where we're really going in mental health and physical health. I'm not anti-medication either. It's interesting. I think some people could really benefit from medication who don't want it. And then other people may have a view that taking a pill is the magic solution for everything. So we got to be somewhere in the middle where the pill or whatever is like jump starting a car, where you may get that boost you need, but then the change, you have to have the hardware change that's a little deeper than that.
Well, I think people erroneously think it's a long-term solution.
Sure.
And even when it works, it's not a long-term solution. It, like you said, it can be a short-term jump start to help make other changes.
Right.
And it can be very effective.
Right. Yeah. But, you know, whether we're ready to or not, we have to address at some point whatever traumatic events or whatever shaped our perspective on ourselves. And that's why it's so important that someone have a community or people in their lives that they feel comfortable doing that with whenever they're ready, right? Not too quickly, because that can be destabilizing. But I think often people may rely on medication exclusively because there's a fear, either on an intrinsic level or either consciously that they're aware of addressing that stuff that's very shameful, or that they would rather repress or do something to kind of drown it out, whatever that would be. I see that a lot. And I have such a heart for people like that, because you get therapists who may be a little too excited to delve deep when you have to take it slower with people who aren't ready to face stuff.
Right. And Jeremy, that's where therapists like you can come in and be a big help. It's a lot of times people don't have that kind of person in their life.
Right. You're right.
And that's why seeing a therapist or a counselor is in no way a bad thing or an admission of weakness. It's actually a strength in finding your support network.
Yep, 100%. And it all gets into what our understanding of mental health is. I'll be the first to say there's a huge stigma surrounding the mental health field, and for good reason. I mean, there's a bit of a sort of very, how to say this appropriately, well, just boring sort of veneer to a lot of mental health stuff. It's very much about, speaking softly and kind of whispered tones. And that's great for people if you really want a more delicate approach. But if you want a badass approach to therapy and you want to really be authentic, thankfully, there's a new wave of therapists out there and mental health experts, advocates, whatever, who are going that way, where they're introducing humor into it, right? They're making it more comfortable and less of a kind of cringe-inducing experience of just having to regurgitate whatever you're upset about, and it be a very, very kind of boring experience. Have you ever heard of the book You Are a Badass?
No,
it's a good one. Jen Sincero wrote that. She's like a life coach, but she's a real firecracker, and that's a very eye-catching title, and just talks about how past experiences and issues with how you understand money, or how you understand praise, or any kind of reinforcement, stuff like that, can really affect people. And those are the core conversations that have to happen. And it can be in many different ways. So finding somebody whose personality works out with you, it's very much like finding a relationship. It's like, for some people, they're really going to need someone who's very calm, very level, measured, almost monotone. If they're very stimulus overridden and can't need that calm sense. But then somebody else who really wants humor or liveliness or whatever to kind of diffuse the tension, that's going to be a different approach. So there's a therapist out there for everybody. There would be my counsel on that, especially somewhere like where I am in Colorado. I don't know how it is back south because I visit a lot, but I don't know as much the landscape there on that. That would be interesting.
After my brain injury suicide attempt, I did go back to counseling. I hadn't been in probably a decade.
Okay.
And I found a really good therapist. And I don't know if it was the case of when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, or if she was just that good. But she practiced cognitive behavioral therapy, which, as you know, but your listeners may not know, it actually, through neuroplasticity, changes your brain. So a lot of therapies do. And a lot of therapies now are based on neuroplastic principles. And she'd read a lot of the same books and used humor. And we just kind of clicked. And it was such a positive experience. She retired. And when she did, she said, you don't even need to find any bounce. But I still wish I had her once in a while just to kind of bounce things off of.
Yeah. That's a good point. So what inspired you to write your story into a book form? Because, by the way, the title's great. That's pretty good. And the cover's cool, too. That's some really spiffy stuff.
Well, I'm going to show it right here if you can see it. I had self-published it. It's called Sex, Suicide, Serotonin. I self-published it for 2 years.
Right.
And then I actually got a publisher. And believe it or not, I started writing it about in the second or third year after the brain injury. So all the emotions were still pretty fresh. Yeah. And I still was not completely recovered from the brain injury. So it was a really good thing for me to do, just to sit at home and write, because I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything else. I still didn't speak normally. Right. And believe it or not, and I didn't set out with this intent, but after I'd written it, it was like writing it helped me heal, because once I put it on paper, I didn't have to carry it around anymore. So it was a really healing process for me. And I've got a blog on my website about how writing helps you heal mentally and emotionally. Yes. And writing is one way that you can process emotions.
Certainly it is.
But I read it now and I'm like, it's almost like it happened to somebody else. I mean, I know it was me, but I don't know. I don't feel the gut-wrenching emotions that went with it. But I think the gut-wrenching emotions are there. I mean, like you said, the reviews on Amazon are like, people say it's life-changing, and I'm just floored, but I'm so glad. Because to take your pain and make it worthwhile and meaningful and helpful to others is, I think, the most that you can hope for it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's profound. And putting it in a way that people understand that their experiences are not somehow insurmountable, that you've been through horrendous pain and come out to be such an advocate and an artist out of it too, that, you know, sharing what you've learned in a way that's distinctly you. One of your articles that you did with Huffington Post was CBT related. Oh, yes. The quickest way to change how you feel is to change how you think. That automatically made me think of cognitive behavior therapy. So it's interesting to hear you discuss how you were profoundly influenced by that. I think people who have more of an intellectual, authorly bent, you know, proclivity toward that really resonate with CBT, because you can get in, you can challenge those thoughts and look at it as rewriting your mental processes.
The thing that I think is good about CBT or BAT or ACT is they actually have concrete steps.
Yes.
I mean, people, I think, tend maybe erroneously think of therapy as like laying on Freud's couch, like you said before.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, having this dumping of emotions.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be that anymore.
No.
It can actually be constructive, concrete things that, and I wanted to touch on this before.
Please.
Even if you go to a therapist or read books or whatever you do, the work has to be, you have to do the work, regardless of where you get your guidance.
100%.
So that is something that we all can do. I mean, we all can take concrete steps and make changes. Little changes add up to big results, especially consistently over time. I mean, that's how you change your life. That's how you change your brain. We all can do that.
Yes. That's so crucial for people to realize. It's like if we expected to go into the gym after not exercising either in our whole lives or in a long time, and then lifting the heaviest weights or running on the treadmill for a really long amount of time, like we would know, okay, so maybe we need to dial it back a little bit. We're not going to be that level of athleticism. Our athleticism is not going to be that high yet. But we tend to not have that awareness when it comes to other goals. We tend to want to achieve them right away. The more abstract the goal, the less we kind of look at it as something to do incrementally, right? And so I love how CBT and anything like ACT, acceptance and commitments therapy, that's a good one, help people to realize anything is going to require that incremental change. Instead of
my thing is, if you learn about how your brain works, you can help yourself. For instance, along with these things, it's really important that you celebrate and acknowledge the small accomplishments.
Right.
Like even going to the gym and walking on the treadmill for 15 minutes. And the reason why is because it causes your brain to release dopamine. And dopamine is number one, is a feel-good neurotransmitter. It calms you, but it also is primarily responsible for motivation. So it also keeps you going back. So when you understand how your brain works, you can understand little things to do to help point it and you and your life in the right direction.
Oh, I couldn't have said it better. That's spectacular. Yeah, we have to mindfully savor our accomplishments or else we're not going to continue doing them. We have to reinforce that which we want to become. We do that negatively. We do that with things that we do that we're embarrassed of, that we don't do again, but we don't do it with things that we want to repeat typically.
Right.
It's like you said, we focus on danger. We focus on surviving things, not on thriving. So we have to really amplify that positive reinforcement. We have to add it, put extra attention on that, or we're not going to keep doing that because we're not going to feel like it mattered.
I know it sounds hokey, but one thing I think that really works wonders is just a mental gratitude list at the end of the day.
No, that's beautiful.
Because
I love it.
Like you said, your brain is going to remember all the shitty, horrible things that happened. But what if you took just 10 minutes at the end of the day and really look for little moments that were good or things that went right? Because your brain completely skips over those.
Yep.
Your brain does what's called habituation, which means it gets used to the norm. You pretty much probably eat every day. So your brain doesn't be thankful that you have food in the fridge. But what if you didn't have any food for a day? Do you think your brain would notice that? Oh, you better believe it.
Right.
So if you're going to spend time focusing on the bad, why not spend time focusing on the flip side? That you have heat, that you have money in the bank, that you have clothes on your back, or transportation. Again, I think it sounds a little hokey to be thankful that the sun is out. But what if it had been raining for 3 days and 10 degrees? Wouldn't that be something to be thankful for?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's not hokey. It's really necessary. And when people hear about gratitude journals, they can think that it's somewhat hacky or corny if they don't really understand the science of it and how it can be used.
That's why I do the science.
Yep. And I'm sure that people will benefit from hearing that in your book, and I'll be excited when that comes out. Your mindfulness book. That'll be a good refresher for anyone.
Well, in the meantime, they can get similar stuff in this book.
Oh yeah, I love it. That's a good one.
I mean, we were talking about before your brain's natural negativity bias.
Yeah.
A gratitude list, finding the good, affirmations, all those things are the way that you combat your brain's natural negativity.
Yep.
And those kind of things are in this book.
Yep. And for people listening on the podcast when that comes out, it's the Beat Depression and Anxiety by Changing Your Brain book. It's got an awesome smiley face on the front, and I will link to it where it'll take people directly to Amazon to buy it. Okay, so one thing I wanted to bring up, since we're on the topic of dopamine, chemicals, and all that, is something that is just mind-blowing that you wrote about way back in 2016. It's weird that feels like yesterday. But anyway, the depression, the melanocortin-releasing neuron medication that I'll link to this article too. Spectacularly interesting stuff about this medication that is being crowdfunded, right? That was, I had not heard about that. So people can check out Cornell Morgan's Indiegogo page. How did you get wrapped up in that, Debbie? That's wild.
They actually contacted me.
Okay.
And they were doing phenomenal research. I need to follow up. I don't know if they got funded or not. But I get contacted by several organizations like that. And like I said, I do believe in promoting mental health.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of organizations and people out there that are grassroots. Of course you hear about big pharma,
of course,
and the medical professionals, but there's a lot of other stuff worth merit out there. And if you start exploring and investigating, it's out there, you can find it. And just because Western medicine does not endorse it doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. When I was healing from my brain injury, I did all alternative therapies when Western medicine had nothing to offer me. And I'm not downplaying Western medicine. Western medicine is very good in a medical emergency or crisis.
Right.
But there are a lot of other countries that embrace other technologies that we don't here in the U.S., like neurofeedback. That is standard in other countries. And you know as well as I do, that's phenomenal. It actually changes your brain waves. And I would credit that and hyperbaric oxygen therapy with healing me from the brain injury, when Western medicine basically told me I was screwed and I was severely impaired. But solutions to almost anything are out there.
True.
They may not be part of Western medicine or readily available, but if you start doing some research and start finding resources like me and other people, there are things out there that can help you.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I couldn't agree more with that. I want to ask you something that I try to ask all my guests. If you could meet 3 people, living or dead, it could be famous philosophers, be religious figures, whatever, who would you meet?
Well, my number one choice is a no-brainer, would be my dead brother. I would love to see him again.
Yeah.
And other than that, it'd be Michael Merzenich, who is a scientist who originally confirmed neuroplasticity back in the 70s at UCSF, and he's a leading advocate in the brain mental health arena now, and he is a co-owner of a company called Posit Science, and they have cutting-edge technologies, brain training for autism, for brain injuries, that kind of thing. Matter of fact, I did their products extensively to heal my brain from the injury. Like I said, the stuff is out there.
Yeah.
And the other one would be Norman Deutsch, who wrote The Brain That Changes Itself.
Oh, that's awesome.
That book was my Bible. That book tells stories of people born with half a brain that are completely normal, or people that have had devastating injuries, or that learned how to see with their skin. And after I read that book, I was like, okay, here's a manual that tells me how to heal my brain. Every brain injury and every brain are different, but the principles are the same. And I use the information in that book to heal my brain.
That is just spectacular. The Brain That Heals Itself is a book that I've heard about from so many people, and I need to read it. It's on my list. It's great. I can tell.
It's also very entertaining. It's not real sciencey.
Right. Okay. Well, then it's very conversational style, huh?
Right.
That is really interesting stuff. It's so important for people to actually get some actionable tips for their mental health instead of just
I agree.
Yeah, the good vibe stuff. Part of it really does come down to marketing. Most of it does. You're absolutely right. And I think there's some well-intentioned people who like to feel that they're helping. They don't understand how little they actually are helping. That's a whole thing. Oh my gosh. So have you traveled? Have you done any traveling with your message?
No, I actually work.
Oh yeah, okay.
Every day, so I don't know. It's my hope. I only work part-time.
Yeah.
And I run my online business the other part of the time. So it is certainly my hope that one day I can just write books and go speak.
Yeah. You're going to do it.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you are with the level of stuff that you're writing, with the articles and actual full-length books too. I love that you emphasize mental rehearsal, by the way. So that's something that goes along with the gratitude of you have to repeat the stuff that you want. It can't just be, well, just like going to the gym. It's not, well, I did this. I did a few reps of the rowing machine and now I'm going to be a great kayaker. No, you have to practice gratitude and seeing things positively at the very least a few times a week. It'd be great to do that every day, but you have, the faster you want to see changes, the more you have to do it.
As you've referred to, I have a blog about the 10 fundamentals of neuroplasticity.
Yep.
One of the fundamentals is almost everyday repetition.
Yep.
Your brain is not going to make changes unless it's reinforced periodically. And the best way is every single day. When I was doing brain training to heal from my brain injury, our brain trained every day for years. And think about it. The way bad habits get ingrained is you do them over and over and over.
Yep.
Why you have to do the same thing for good habits, whether it's a gratitude list or going to the gym or meditating or whatever.
Right. Absolutely. And that was what I was looking at. That article is really, really great. I'm going to recommend that a lot to people because people need a list of evidence of encouragement about neuroplasticity. That's it. I mean, why it's such a key movement is because for so many years, scientists were saying that once the brain reached adulthood, that was it, right?
Oh yeah, they thought basically the brain only changed during critical periods in childhood.
Right.
And that once you got to like early adulthood, your brain was pretty much set. Well, now we know that's not true at all. Your brain changes until the day you die.
Right.
It is more easily changeable during childhood. It's more plastic. And think about it, they don't really have to put much energy or effort into it. As an adult, you do need to kind of, we were talking about your attention being mindful. Your attention is like a spotlight. You do have to put your attention on changing your brain and changing your behavior. You have to have intent. But think about it. You put attention on bad habits.
Yes.
Subconsciously, even though you don't mean to.
Right.
If somebody is doing drugs or drinking alcohol, they certainly intend and purposely do that over and over and over.
Right.
So they're giving the attention and repetition necessary to change their brain, but they're not doing it intentionally, meaning to do it. What if you use that same power? That's the power you have to change your life. What if you use that to help you?
Exactly. Right. What if we use that to actually increase behaviors in a positive, addictive way? It's getting yourself to do the least little thing and then building on that. So
I like that. You just said positive addiction.
Yeah. And I can't take credit for that. I'm sure I read that somewhere. But the thing is, yeah, it's like arguing yourself into how to do something. People will often watch like a YouTube video and then it'll just go to the next one or the next one, or with Netflix or with anything like that. You kind of make the initial decision of, oh, I'm just going to do this for 30 minutes, or I'm going to watch this episode. Then it turns into longer. People binge watch, which is okay sometimes, obviously, but that mechanism of little by little and then adding up, we often allow to happen unconsciously, but we can use that in a conscious way to build up, to decrease our resistance to something by saying, I'm going to do a little bit. And then if you end up doing it more, great. And if you don't, then you lived up to that small goal that you set. Either way.
I tell my son all the time, the mental chatter, you're talking to yourself all the time anyway. Why not use it to help you? I mean, it's the same with
I love that.
Your behavior, your energy. I mean, you're exerting energy of your life, making little decisions all day long. Why not use them to help you? Why not use your self-voice to help you?
100%. Why not? Take ownership of it. Don't allow something to stay automatic that you can manually increase in its effectiveness and helpfulness. Yeah, that's absolutely 100%. People have to be willing to do the groundwork on that and just realize that it's a small commitment a day, and our limbic system gets into like wanting to be either safe or not, wanting to think it's a very binary thought process. So we have to realize that it's a very incremental, different sort of frontal lobe planning that is going to get us where we want to go in terms of improvement.
If you live your life guided by your frontal lobe and insert some intelligence into your actions and behaviors, you'll be fine. And your frontal lobe does prioritize your happiness.
Yeah.
If you don't, and you just live according to your feelings and reactions, you're gonna end up unhappy, and I always say in the ditch, because that's where my life went. My life went straight into the ditch.
Yeah, it's something that many people allow. If you don't have any way of living beyond that and you're taught this is just the way that your mind works, this is just the way things are, it's really difficult to know any better. And so that's why it's so powerful that you're sharing messages, that we have people now who care enough to say, you're struggling, here's a better way to think. If you've been taught to just suck it up or deal with things in this way and repress it until you explode, repress it until you return that inward and hurt yourself, here's a way to deal with it that's sustainable, that doesn't lead to that. Because many people are raised in a way, as you were saying, where you don't know that there's a better capacity, there's a different manner of dealing with stuff.
And my life these days is not all rainbows and glitter and unicorns, but the big difference is that I now have the tools and the confidence to know that I can figure it out.
Yeah.
And I can weather whatever happens.
Yes.
I don't have to freak out. I don't have to run away or try to die. I can figure it out. And my favorite phrase, I still have anxiety, and I practice coming into the present and calming breathing almost every day. And my favorite phrase that I tell myself is, this is for now, not forever, not forever. For now, not forever.
Right.
And I can get through anything for now.
Yes. That's actually a really positive way that people can deal with addictive urges too. It's like, I am going to right now resist smoking a cigarette because people think, oh, I have to never smoke again. Oh my gosh, I can't live up to that. And then
That's overwhelming.
it is. But I'm going to ride out this urge. I'm going to imagine it like a wave and I'm going to let it pass over. That is sustainable. That is something that you can do just for a small moment in time. That's great.
That's called urge surfing. Have you know that?
Yes, I do. And it's part of ACT, good old ACT. I love acceptance and commitment therapy. I do a lot of dialectical behavior therapy with clients because the curriculum is so helpful and I do a group with it. But they're really similar, those two. It's just that acceptance and commitment therapy obviously stresses acceptance more, whereas DBT is all about like the wise mind and the whole delivery system there of that stuff. So as we're winding down here, I want to open the floor up to you to share anything that you want to leave listeners with, anything that we didn't address that you think would be relevant. I know that's a lot. Yeah.
Jeremy, I just want to say, and my main message is that we all have the power to change our lives.
We do.
And our brains. And it doesn't require a bunch of money.
Yeah.
It doesn't require professional help or technology. Great if you can afford those things.
Sure.
Or a prescription. I mean, those things can help. But if you have a thinking brain, you have the resources to change your life. One little decision, one little step at a time.
That's it. That's beautiful. This has been the Fox Den. Thank you, Debbie. That was just so inspirational.
Well, thank you, Jeremy.